47 verse. He that is of God, heareth God's words. Yeah, therefore hear them not, because ye are not of God.
That's right. See, if one of us brothers had the inkling to do something wicked like that, well, if we're righteous and we're of God, then, you know, our conscience is going to say, hey, brother, you, what the hell? No, you know you can't do that. And then you move on. You don't entertain that anymore. But when you're of the devil, you entertain these thoughts, and then you turn these thoughts into actions. And then you're worthy of death now. You know? So give me that 1 Thessalonians, right? Yeah, give me that next scripture.
1 Thessalonians chapter 5, verse 22.
See, because the whole thing is, there shouldn't be any accusations, you know? How are you being accused of something like that? Read on. Go ahead.
Abstain from all appearance of evil.
See, he's not following the Bible. Otherwise, he would have known that you being around these kids too much is an appearance of evil. And because you're wicked, you're not keeping the word. You don't have the Holy Spirit. You're not in this thing for the right reason. Right? You're not a real shepherd. You're just a hireling. So you going to act on your wicked and evil lusts, and here we are now, pointing you out, right? And you're an Israelite, right? As far as I know, you're an Israelite, right? So-called black man, but you're operating like a heathen, like a Gentile. And all right, I told myself that I'm not gonna go on and on. I'm just gonna keep the verses and the points that I got. All right, so Slakia. We're done on that. Let's read on in the article.
All right, read on. What's all this?
Oh, Slakia. That's the next article now, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Next article.
Title is Court File. Defense offers plea deal for Detroit pastor accused of rape in Oakland County.
This is the same pastor, y'all. So now he's accused of rape, not sexual assault, I guess. Well, let's go ahead and get into it.
All right, by the same lady, Eileen Wingblad, updated January 13, 2025.
Right. See, that other article came out, I want to say it was
23.
Yeah, like October 24.
24, yes.
Yeah. And so and even then that was saying that the case had been upgraded. It had been advanced from a lower court to a higher court. All right. So now it seemed like, well, let's read on. Let's just read the article.
All right, it reads, the attorney for a prominent Wayne County pastor accused of raping a minor in Farmington Hills has proposed a plea deal to settle the case.
I know he did. I'm sure he did propose a plea deal. Hey, instead of going to prison for trying to defile a young boy, let me offer an alternative here. Can we come to some kind of agreement? That's why the justice system in America is wicked, man.
Right.
Go ahead.
Reverend Kenneth Flowers, 63, pastor of Greater New Mount Moriah Missionary Baptist Church.
It seems like the more names is in your church, the wickeder you are. Golly.
He's charged with 2 counts of first degree.
So it was third degree. Now it's up to first degree, and it's more than 1 count. Go ahead.
Yeah, 2 counts of first degree criminal sexual conduct against a teen boy on December 20th, 2023, as well as kidnapping him. The crimes are more serious than the ones he initially had been charged with.
Right, in the previous article. Go ahead.
Third degree criminal sexual conduct and assault with intent to commit sexual penetration. His warrant was amended in late October.
Right, so they had to up the charges on that because now we got more evidence that this dude is not just a small monster, he's a terrible beast of a monster.
Flowers waived his right to a preliminary exam in district court.
Now, when I first read that, I was reading that in a lot of different articles, and it said that he had waived his preliminary exam. Now, I'm not a legal person, so I had to find out, why would anybody want to do that? Why would anybody want to waive their preliminary exam? Which also found out that a preliminary hearing is another term that means the same thing. Preliminary exam, preliminary hearing, same thing. All right, so let's find out about that.
Why waive a preliminary hearing? Prevent publicity.
Right. So to try to keep what you did under wraps, right? Because these hearings are public. And if somebody has caught wind of what you got going on and they know you're getting ready to have a hearing, they can invite the media and everything and really put you on blast. And of course, that would hurt a pastor's money, right? And that's the only reason he's a pastor anyway. Money and access to children.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Prevent publicity, prevent additional charges being added.
Right. So at these preliminary trials, if some new information has come up, they'll add that as another charge to your case. But if you don't have the preliminary trial or the preliminary hearing, then you don't have the opportunity for that as much, right? Go ahead.
Yeah, prevent additional charges being added, stall the case, protect bail status.
Right, because they can actually, let's say that you initially, like for the first charge when it was a third degree, they set your bail. But now, if you have a preliminary exam or a hearing, they might say, oh, we got some new stuff here.
Yep.
Now we're going to, no bond, right? Now he can't have any bond or whatever. Go ahead.
Keep plea bargains alive. Avoid inflaming hostile witnesses.
Right. So, you know, he might have had a plea deal, right? He made a plea deal saying, hey, let me plead guilty to a lesser charge, you know, and I'll do this or that. I promise I'll never, you know, teach at or preach at another church or whatever. But if he has a preliminary exam, they could change that and say, nah, you know, we ain't gonna honor this plea deal because we found out now you're a whole monster, right? So, so to avoid losing that deal, then somebody might say, you know what, I'm gonna waive that preliminary exam. And then also the last one was to not inflame victims, right, or something like that.
Hostile witnesses.
Hostile witness. So somebody like that child's parent might know about this hearing, and he's going to be waiting outside the courtroom for you, right? Because that's the results that come from your wickedness, right? Is that somebody's going to want to take your head off.
Right.
But by waiving the preliminary hearing, you might be able to avoid some of that stress, right? So that's just for edification. Generally, you know, I had to, you know, learn what I'm reading. Okay. So now let's get Luke 12:2. Oh,
yeah. 2 Timothy 3.
Oh, Salakia. Yeah, can you get Luke 12:2?
Okay.
Sorry, I forgot to. I skipped one when I was transposing.
You said
Luke chapter 12,
verse 2.
and verse 2. Right? It's talking about
Luke chapter 12, verse 2. For there is nothing covered that shall not be revealed, neither hid that shall not be known.
That's right. So you can waive as many preliminary exams as you want. The Most High is not mocked, right? Whatever you sow, that's what you're going to reap, right? And when you sow destruction and oppression, particularly of children, that you know and that, you know, them and their families hold you as a person of authority and a person of protection, but you're being a predator to them. That's, you know, the Most High is just, so you're going to be found out, right? And then once we find out, we're going to put you on blast, right? Because this needs to stop. You know, people must be getting a slap on the wrist, or they might be getting an award for doing this because it keeps happening.
Right.
You know what I mean? It's crazy. But we're going to kind of see how that happens in the later articles. So let's read on.
Reading on. A pre-trial hearing scheduled for January 9th was moved to January 30th, and his court file states that a plea settlement is being worked on.
Yeah.
Flowers is out of custody on a $25,000 personal bond, which means he wasn't required to post any cash or surety to stay out of jail for now.
Right. So they call it a PR bond. You know, you can sign yourself out pretty much with a promise that you're going to show up or
That's
pay.
crazy.
You know, because he doesn't have he's not a criminal. He doesn't have a criminal history. Well, I'm sure he has a criminal history. He just it's just now starting to come out.
Right.
Because this doesn't happen overnight. This man's 60-something years old. Damn shame, man. Go ahead.
Flowers has been pastor at Greater New Mount Moriah since July 1995.
Since 1995. And that's another problem with the churches, right? They put these old devils in here and they just let them run wild for as long as they can.
Right.
You know, until they mess up and destroy some child.
That's not his first case.
Not at all.
He's a repeat offender.
Obviously. Go ahead.
According to the church's website, Flowers claims to be a, quote, social activist with close ties to Congresswoman Maxine Waters and Reverend Jesse Jackson.
Don't that explain it all?
Boulay.
Yeah.
He moved to California in the 1980s, where he headed a ministry at UCLA and served as pastor and minister in the Los Angeles area for several years before returning to Michigan.
Right. Once his statute of limitation on his previous crimes ran out, probably. Damn devil. All right, so where we at? All right, let's get
2 Timothy.
yeah.
This is 2 Timothy chapter 3, verse 13 through 14. But evil men and seducers shall wax worse and worse, deceiving and being deceived. But continue thou in the things which thou hast learned and hast been assured of, knowing whom thou hast learned them.
That's right. So, hey, don't get caught up with these guys, man. That's why I'm always saying, leave these churches, right? This is not going to stop happening because they've done set up a whole infrastructure for it to happen and make it keep happening. Allow it to happen, right? So, everything you do is going to be found out. So you might as well start cleaning yourself up now. Stop doing wickedness and start keeping the commandments and living righteously. All right, so moving on to the next article. All right, because this is starting to become a recurring concern involving these churches, man. All right, so let's bring out this article here.
All right, the title is Walk in the Light, a pastoral response to child sexual abuse.
So we know it's got to be an issue, right? Because here we are, we got a Catholic pastoral response to child abuse that's happening within these churches, right? And now it's spilling outside of Catholic churches into the Christianity churches if it wasn't already there. All right, so let's get into it.
Some ordained ministers and religious brothers and sisters, as well as lay employees and volunteers, have sexually abused children and adolescents.
So let's get Jeremiah chapter 5, 26 and 27.
For among my people are found wicked men.
Right, because this brother is an Israelite, or this man is an Israelite. I wouldn't call him a brother. Go ahead.
They lay wait as he that setteth snares. They set a trap, they catch men. As a cage is full of birds, so are their houses full of deceit. Therefore they are become great and waxen rich.
Right. Set up snares and they catch men, but in his case, he catch boys. See? It's terrible, man. Status makes it easier for these predators. You know? That's what a lot of these guys, they're in theologian school. They don't care about the Most High. They want to be in a job where they can be in control, come and go as they please, do what they want, have everybody kissing their ass and doing whatever they tell them without questioning them, right? Because nobody's reading the Bible. Nobody's understanding that they're being told lies, or that the pastor is not operating in a way that a man of God should be conducting himself, right? Read on. Let's read on.
The National Conference of Catholic Bishops has established an ad hoc committee on sexual abuse by clergy to help church leaders take appropriate action.
And now, when they say take appropriate action, to me, that's code word for how to let the priests get away with it. You know, that's my understanding of. That's my interpretation of that. Okay, go ahead.
While we recognize that sexual abuse of boys is significant, some studies estimate it at 20 to 25% of all child victims.
Right, and you know, so a lot of people thinking that, oh, it's just little girls that's being molested and taken advantage of. Well, maybe, but in these black churches, this one in particular, no, he has a particular eye for little boys.
Yeah, because most of them rape little boys because it's black magic. It's part of witchcraft. They're like one of the highest form of magic is taking the innocence of a little boy. So there's a reason why it's a little boy and a girl. It's all part of those secret societies, man. You know what I'm saying? Yeah, those rituals and stuff like that. It's the reason why it's a little boy instead of a girl.
Gotcha. See? So, terrible that that's even an established point, you know what I'm saying? That's, you know. All right, let's read on.
The overwhelming number of sexual abuse victims are girls. We are especially alarmed at the large number of victims who are girls under age 12. Children.
Yeah, we only pulling a little bit out of these articles, you know what I'm saying? You can always go back and read these articles yourself if you want to get very upset, you know what I'm saying? Start trying to find you a pastor to hunt down and harass. Go ahead. Which I don't recommend. Don't recommend anybody hunt no pastor down. There's going to be a time for that. I recommend you keeping the law, statutes, commandments, and having faith in Yahawashi. Go ahead.
Children, for instance, usually base their image of God, who God is and how God acts, on the adults they meet in their families and parishes.
Right. So now the article is particularly focusing on what are the effects on children, or how children can be affected by these religious organizations and their mischievousness. Go ahead.
When the person who abuses them sexually is also their parent or another trusted adult, children may find it difficult to imagine, much less develop, a relationship with a loving God. This difficulty may be intensified if the abuser is perceived as active in the church. Children may feel angry at God and act with hostility toward those who are God's ministers.
Right. Which, I mean, what other recourse do they have? They're little children, right? They can't physically